Let's talk about the fact that most of your life is a complete waste of time. Don't get offended. It's not just you, it's everyone. We've all been sold this romantic, hard-working lie that if we just put in more hours, grind harder, and check more boxes, we'll eventually stumble into success and happiness. But the reality is that the universe doesn't care about your hustle. The universe is actually incredibly lazy and wildly inefficient. And if you want to get anywhere in this life without having a midlife crisis by 35, you need to understand the 80-20 principle. Richard Koch didn't invent this concept, but he's the one who looked at the Pareto principle and decided to turn it into a survival guide for people who are tired of running on a hamster wheel. The core thesis is simple and honestly kind of insulting to our work ethic. It says that 80% of your results come from 20% of your efforts. That means 4/5 of what you do every single day is essentially background noise. It's fluff. It's the cinematic equivalent of a filler episode in a 22-episode TV season where nothing actually happens. If you can identify that magic 20% and stop obsessing over the useless 80%, you win. Before we dive into how to actually do that, do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Unlike your current daily routine, clicking those buttons actually yields a massive return on investment for your brain, and it helps the algorithm realize that you're someone who values high-leverage insights over cat videos. Now let's get into the first real lesson of the book, which is acknowledging the brutal imbalance of reality. The first thing you have to accept is that the world is not a fair or balanced place. We like to think that if we put in 10 units of effort, we should get 10 units of reward. That's a nice fairy tale we tell children so they'll do their homework. In the real world, the math is broken. Koch explains that in almost every field of human endeavor, a tiny minority of causes leads to a massive majority of effects. Think about your wardrobe. You probably have a closet bursting with clothes, but let's be honest, you wear the same 2 pairs of jeans and the same 3 hoodies until they start to smell like a gym locker. That's the 80-20 principle in your bedroom. You use 20% of your clothes 80% of the time. The rest is just fabric you're storing for no reason. This applies to everything. In business, 20% of customers usually account for 80% of the revenue. In your social life, 20% of your friends provide 80% of the genuine laughs and support, while the other 80% are basically just people you tolerate at birthday parties so you don't look like a hermit. The street-smart insight here is to stop trying to be a completionist. We have this psychological itch to treat everything as equal, but that's a recipe for burnout. If you're a business owner, you shouldn't be treating the high-maintenance customer who spends $50 the same way you treat the quiet client who spends $5,000. Modern life is like a crowded bar, where 80% of the people are just standing around blocking the way to the bathroom, while the 20% are actually at the bar getting things done. Your job is to find the bar and ignore the crowd. The second lesson moves into the realm of time management, or as Coach would probably prefer to call it, the time revolution. We've been conditioned to believe that being busy is a badge of honor. We wear our exhaustion like a designer suit, bragging about how we haven't slept and how our calendars are double booked. Coach looks at this and essentially calls it a form of mental illness. He argues that we don't have a shortage of time, we have an abundance of low-value activity. Most of the stuff we think is urgent is just a distraction from the stuff that is actually important. Think of your daily to-do list. It's likely a mile long, filled with emails to answer, errands to run, and meetings that could have been a 3-sentence Slack message. The 80-20 principle suggests that if you have 10 things to do today, 2 of them are going to change your life, and the other 8 are just busy work designed to make you feel like a productive member of society. It's like a fitness fad, where people spend $300 on fancy leggings and a gallon-sized water bottle, but spend 10 minutes actually lifting weights. The leggings don't get you the muscles, the heavy lifting does. To apply this, you need to perform a ruthless audit of your day. What are the moments where you feel truly creative, productive, or happy? That's your gold. Everything else is just dirt. The goal isn't to manage your time better. The goal is to stop doing the 80% of stuff that doesn't matter so you can double down on the 20% that does. It's about being high leverage, not high activity. A sniper doesn't fire 1,000 rounds hoping to hit something. They wait for the one shot that counts. Be the sniper, not the guy with the super soaker. Moving on to lesson number 3, let's talk about your social circle and the myth of the popular person. We live in a world obsessed with networking and having a massive following. We think the more friends, followers, and connections we have, the more successful we are. Koch calls absolute nonsense on this. He points out that human relationships follow the 80-20 rule just as strictly as economics. Think about your phone's contact list. You probably have hundreds of names in there, but there are maybe 5 people you would actually call if you were stranded on the side of the road at 3 in the morning. Those 5 people are your 20%. They provide almost all the emotional value in your life. The other 80% are what I like to call energy vampires or status fillers. These are the people who invite you to brunches you don't want to go to, who drain your mental battery with their endless drama, or who only reach out when they need a favor. In the modern world of social media, this is even worse. We spend 80% of our social energy scrolling through the lives of people we don't even like just to feel a sense of connection that isn't actually there. The street-smart insight here is to perform a social purge. It sounds cynical, but it's actually the kindest thing you can do for yourself. Identify the few people who actually challenge you, make you better, and make you laugh until your stomach hurts. Spend 80% of your social time with them. Stop trying to be the nice guy who responds to every boring acquaintance. You are not a customer service representative for the world. If a relationship isn't part of that vital 20% that brings you joy or growth, it's just noise. It's like a Netflix subscription you keep paying for but never watch. Just cancel it.
Lesson 4 is all about the so what of your career and finances. If you're an employee or an entrepreneur, you've probably noticed that some days you feel like a god, and other days you feel like you're pushing a boulder up a hill while wearing flip-flops. Koch argues that this is because you haven't identified your core competence or your high-yield tasks. In any job, there are a handful of moments or decisions that determine your value. For a salesperson, it's not the hours spent updating the CRM, it's the 10 minutes on the phone closing the big deal. For a coder, it's not the time spent rearranging icons, it's the hours spent solving the logic puzzle that makes the whole app work. We have this weird obsession with effort being the metric of success. If we suffer, we feel like we're earning it. But money doesn't care about just suffering. It cares about value. Look at the finance world or meme culture. You can spend 80% of your time researching 1,000 different penny stocks and make $10, or you can spend 20% of your time understanding one major trend and make a killing. It's about finding the sweet spot of your talent. Most people are okay at a lot of things, which makes them replaceable, but everyone has a 20% area where they're actually exceptional. If you spend your time trying to improve your weaknesses, you'll end up with a bunch of mediocre skills. If you spend your time maximizing your 20% of strengths, you become an outlier. It's like a restaurant menu. The best places usually do 3 things perfectly. The places that try to serve sushi, pizza, and tacos all at once usually end up serving garbage. Don't be the taco, pizza, sushi guy. Find your signature dish and charge a premium for it. The 5th lesson is about the art of simplification and the danger of complexity. We live in a world that worships complexity. We think that if a solution is simple, it must be stupid. We build these massive, bloated systems in our businesses and our lives because we think more moving parts equals more sophistication. Koch argues the exact opposite. Complexity is the ultimate drain on your 80-20 efficiency. Every time you add a new step to a process, a new app to your phone, or a new commitment to your schedule, you are increasing the friction in your life. This friction eats up your vital 20%. Think about the modern dating scene. It's been turned into a complex logistical nightmare of multiple apps, endless texting phases, and situationships. People spend 80% of their time performing digital gymnastics and only 20% actually getting to know someone. The 80-20 approach would be to cut through the fluff, be direct, and focus on the few people where there's actual chemistry. The same goes for your finances. You don't need 20 different bank accounts and a complex web of investments to build wealth. You need a few high-impact habits that you do consistently. Complexity is just a way for our brains to hide from the hard work of making a decision. It's much easier to spend all day organizing your desk than it is to actually sit down and do the one difficult task that will move the needle. True genius and true 80-20 living is about stripping away the layers until only the essential is left. It's like a minimalist apartment. It's easy to clean, easy to live in, and you actually know where your keys are. If your life feels like a junk drawer, it's because you're letting the 80% of useless stuff crowd out the 20% of things you actually need. Finally, Lesson 6 is the psychology of the low-yield life and how to break out of it. Most people will listen to this and agree, but they won't change anything. Why? Because we are addicted to being busy. We have a deep-seated fear that if we stop doing the useless 80%, people will realize we aren't as important as we pretend to be. We use busy as a shield to avoid the existential dread of wondering if we're actually doing anything meaningful. Koch suggests that we need to develop the courage to be lazy in the right way. This doesn't mean sitting on the couch eating chips all day, although let's be real, 20% of the chips probably provide 80% of the satisfaction. It means having the discipline to say no to the good opportunities so you can say yes to the great ones. It's the hell yes or no rule. If something doesn't make you feel an immediate hell yes, it's probably part of the 80% of distractions that are stealing your life. We see this in fitness culture all the time. People will spend hours on a treadmill hating every second and then wonder why they don't see results. Meanwhile, the person who finds the 20% of movements they actually enjoy, maybe it's sprinting, maybe it's rock climbing, ends up in better shape because they're actually engaged. The goal is to align your life so that your work feels like play because you're only doing the parts that you're naturally good at and that actually produce results. If you're grinding through life and feeling miserable, you're not a martyr, you're just bad at math. You're letting the majority of your time be dictated by things that don't move the needle. To wrap this all up, the 80-20 principle isn't just a business strategy, it's a worldview. It's a realization that the universe is inherently lopsided, and trying to balance it out is a fool's errand. You don't need more hours in the day, you need more day in your hours. Richard Koch wants you to stop being a manager of your life and start being an investor. A manager tries to keep everything running and in its place. An investor looks for the few assets that are going to explode in value and dumps everything else. Look at your life right now. Look at your friends, your job, your hobbies, and your habits. Which 20% of those things make you feel like a superstar? Which 20% make your bank account actually grow? Which 20% make you feel like life is actually worth living? Once you find them, guard them with your life. Everything else is just background noise, filler content, and junk mail. The secret to success isn't doing more, it's doing significantly less of the stuff that doesn't matter. It sounds simple, almost too simple to be true, but that's the point. The most powerful ideas usually are. So stop polishing the 80% of your life that's just chrome-plated plastic. Find the 20% that's solid gold and start digging. And hey, if you found this summary useful, you've already hit your 20% of high-value content for the day. You can go ahead and spend the rest of your afternoon looking at memes. You've earned it. Just make sure they're the top 20% of memes. Life is too short for mediocre comedy, and even shorter for a life lived at 80% inefficiency. Go out there and start cutting the fat. Your future self, the one who's not stressed and actually has a life, will thank you.